Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to today's podcast station, the home of Rhodri Giggs on football. Rhodri's had an issue last minute, so luckily for me, I have the delectable Mr. Robert Boyle joining me. But
Oh,
just
delectable.
delectable, mate. Uh,
Oh, I
my
like
word,
that.
my word of the day. But just as we wait for a few of the latecomers and all that jazz, as it were, little Super Six update. Matthew Williams and ex-Cardiff City legend Andy Legg both had a good round, scoring 12 points. But top of the table this week was none other than the organiser himself, Mr. Will Melush, on 14 points. It wasn't such good news for myself and Rhodri, as we only got 6 points between us. But of course, that was 4 for me, 2 for Rhodri, which means after a few poor rounds from Rodders, I am now 33 points ahead.
Mind the gap.
Indeed, mate. Mind the gap. But yeah, Rhodri, he's in a poor bit of form. I think that's why he's been away now like 2 weeks in a row, because he's embarrassed by his performance in the Super Six. He's embarrassed. Remind me later, mate, that I need to do the old sponsor, because I'll forget and then I'll get in trouble. Shout out to Four Sigmatic Coffee for sponsoring the channel at the moment. Can't fault them, and they do stupendous coffee, which keeps you going all day off one cup. Proper. Robert Boyle, how are you, mate?
I am wicked, mate. Love to see your beautiful face again. How are you doing?
All right, mate. Not too bad, apart from the fact that I keep echoing on your screen and it's pissing me right off. But apart from that, it's all good. If it keeps going, I might ask you to go back out and come back in again. We'll
Do you want me to do that right now?
Yeah, go on, do that now while I have a little chit chat to the
All right.
viewers. In fact, if people have got any questions and stuff throughout the show, as always, please do send them in. We're going to do probably a short, sharp hour, talk about as many different subjects from the world of football. There is lots to discuss. We got United Arsenal last weekend. You got United up for sale, Cardiff up for sale. Well, supposedly. We've got Cardiff looking for a new manager. There's Everton sacked Lampard. The Carabao Cup semi-finals, lots to discuss. So we'll have all of that to discuss. Oh, Jesus, it's even worse. Jesus Christ. Right, let me have a see if I can fiddle. What do you make of Cardiff's managerial search, Robert?
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's like, do you know what it makes me feel like? Is Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory. Just like there's some golden tickets knocking about out there. Well, I wouldn't even call them golden tickets, in fairness. I would probably call them used sanitary pads knocking about, and whoever finds them has the luck of taking on this heap of shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely concept to have.
It's. I mean, it looks like we're gonna get ex-Forest manager Lamucci with Sol Bamba as assistant manager. But I mean, let's be honest, that's going to be Lamucci, and then when things go wrong, he will get sacked, and Sol Bamba will take off, and it'll just be rinse and repeat as it always is, mate. It's just one of them things. Cardiff seem to go round and round and round.
Eat, sleep, sack, repeat. Eat, sleep, sack, repeat.
And I think we all know that until the board is gone and the owner's gone, nothing's much is going to change. We've got no money, and all that's happening is the crowds are getting smaller because people are getting more and more disheartened and fed up. And it's just one of them things. But we'll talk a bit more about Cardiff. We'll talk a bit more about the championship. Like, I remember when me and you, a couple of months back, were talking before Hudson got a job about potential candidates for the Cardiff job, and one name which we discussed was Michael Carrick. And if memory serves me correctly, I think I said I think he'd be a good choice. I don't think he would come to Cardiff because I don't think we'd pay his wages, and I don't think we'd pay the backroom staff and give him the transfer budget that he wanted. But actually, Middlesbrough did back him. He had his backroom staff in super quick. And then also, as well as that, he didn't really spend a great deal of money to get him playing real good stuff. And I think they lost on the weekend, but I mean, they're sixth in the league, and I think he's doing an absolute fabulous job. They've lost one out of the last 5. They've won the other 4. They're in great form. They're playing superb football. And I mean, if you watched Middlesbrough like a year or two ago, they were playing proper Cardiff football, like, Warnock style, like really painful to watch. And it's that type of football where if you're winning, you accept it. So like my example is always like the year Cardiff won the championship under Malky Mackay. The football we were playing was painful. It was like 1-0 win, 2-1 win, all the rest of it. But the reason people got behind it was because there was passion and there was commitment, and we'd have like last minute equalizers, last minute wins. We'd never give up, and the momentum grew through the season with those 1-0s and 2-1s and stuff. And then you had the odd sort of heavier result. But the football, if we're being honest with hindsight, was painful. Like, it was boring. It's that type of just like turgid shite which we're trying to move away from. But Middlesbrough was in the same boat not long ago. Carrick's come in and he's gone and playing good stuff. You look at the football which United played under Van Gaal, under Mourinho, under Ranieri. It was a little bit better under Solskjaer, but not particularly great. And then all of a sudden, 6 months has taken Ten Hag with 3 or 4 extra players, essentially the same players, and they're doing quite well. They competed with Arsenal on Saturday with the runaway leaders at the top of the Premier League. And it just goes to show that if you have the right people in charge, whether it's in the management or in the board, it doesn't have to be a 3-year project to turn things around. The one disadvantage I think that Cardiff has over some other clubs is that we've got no money, which means you can't bring players in. Obviously, we have a transfer embargo as well, and it's difficult to dig yourself out of that situation where you're fighting those battles.
Yeah, I remember that conversation vividly, the Carrick one, and you're absolutely right, mate. Because he was linked at the time, and I think within a couple of days after our conversation, lo and behold, he was an ex-Borough manager, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He was, and yeah, it just goes to show, mate, what he can, what backing a young manager can do. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. It's obviously not going to happen, not in a million years, but out of the two, take off your anti-Liverpool hat for a second. But would you prefer Lampard or Gerrard as gaffer?
Cardiff?
Yeah. If you had to pick one, it's never going to, neither going to happen. Let's be realistic.
I would take Gerrard because I think Frank Lampard is damaged goods now to a certain extent. I think he needs to go abroad to repair his reputation, because this is my point, right? Is I know a lot of people point to, he kept Everton up last year when they really looked down. But I mean, Everton should have never been in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
With the players and the squad they had. So it was never a question of whether they had a good enough squad to get those results. So I would question how much of that was him, other than, just getting them going and whatever. But like, I point to the Derby squad he had, which he failed to get promotion with. And
Yeah.
you look at that
That's a good
team,
squad.
and it was unbelievable team. People like Mason Mount, who are now England regulars, and he didn't get them up. And I regarded it at the time as a failure, and I think it was a big failure. So
Yeah.
to me, I wouldn't touch Frank Lampard. I think he needs to go abroad. If you had to make me pick out the two, I'd probably pick Gerrard, because I think Gerrard showed at Rangers that he's got something about him as a manager. And I also think, like, I look at Villa, right? They were going through a bad spell and they sacked him. I get it. That's football. But similarly to Mark Hudson, like, I'm just not entirely sure what people were expecting. Like, in Gerrard's case with Villa, I think sometimes you get carried away. Like, he signed people like Coutinho, and they thought they were going to compete for the Champions League or something, or Champions League spots. And it's like, it's never going to happen. That takes, unless you're Newcastle and you have literally got a bottomless pit of money, it takes years to build yourself up. It took Stoke like 8 years or something just to become an established Premier League club, which wasn't fighting relegation every year. And Tony Pulis, it takes time to put everything in place. You can't just do it overnight.
No.
In terms of being like an established Premier League club or long-term aspirations to take a football club on. Like, I look at like Mark Hudson's situation just very quickly, like with Cardiff. Like, I don't know what he was expected to do. He had the same players. He had no transfer window to deal with. He was picking up the pieces after Morrison was sacked out of the blue. No one knows still why Steve Morrison was sacked. And it's like, what? All right, maybe Mark Hudson, I think he made a couple of errors early on with his selections and his formations. Maybe he tried to be a bit too cute and a bit too clever. But also, I think it was clear that the players wanted to play for him to a certain extent. But he was an inexperienced manager with no experience around him. Like, he has got some excellent coaches alongside him. He had some excellent coaches alongside him, but they were, they're coaches. They coach. He didn't have anyone, because there's no one in the Cardiff hierarchy who knows anything about football or has got a football side to their career. He had no one to go to with a bit of experience or a bit of nous about him within the football club. So he didn't have a director of football. He didn't have someone on the board maybe who's an ex-footballer, an ex-Cardiff player, or just knows the game from a footballing point of view. The football club is Vincent Tan and then a load of bankers and finance people. There's no one in there who knows anything about football. Yes, there's people in there like Dalman who know how to run a football club, like they've been involved in that side of it, but they don't know anything about football. So I'm not sure what people expected from Mark Hudson, and it did come to the point where he probably had to go, unfortunately. And I hope that it doesn't damage like his status with the fans and stuff, because absolute bona fide legend, one of the nicest people I've had the pleasure of having on the podcast and meeting in person. Exchanged a couple of messages with him like the week after he was sacked and that, and he seems to be doing good and happy enough. But just very disappointed, because if ever there was someone I wanted to succeed as manager of Cardiff, it was him. I really wanted him to do well. But like, what are you supposed to do if you've got the same players who failed for the last couple of seasons, and you don't get a transfer window, or when you do, like when a window opens, you've got an embargo, so you can't bring anyone in. It's ridiculous. Cardiff, I think Cardiff will go down, because I think the morale within the team has got to be about as low as it could get. To go through two managers who they like. From what I know, there's been rumours that one of the reasons Steve Morrison was gone is that some of the players didn't like him and he was a bit prickly with the media and the rest of it. But like, nobody really knows. And I have to say, the people who I know within the club, I didn't hear that. I heard that the players loved him and they were quite shocked when he got sacked. So you got that. Mark Hudson was very popular because he's Mark Hudson. So you've got, not only have we gone through two managers, But we've gone through 2 managers who the players supposedly are quite close to and enjoy playing for. Now, maybe if they enjoy playing for those 2 managers so much, they maybe could have given a bit more to make sure they didn't get sacked. But that's another conversation, I guess. But like, what's Lamucci going to do that Steve Morrison wasn't doing? Well, I'll tell you what he'll do is he'll charm the press. Well, that's fantastic. I don't really give a shit if the press like the manager or not, because that does absolutely nothing for the football team.
I mean, the only thing, I don't know, maybe I'm being superstitious. I don't know, but maybe that's what we need, is someone who's not coming in and muckers with the players already. Not got you look at him. All right, fucking Big Dick Mick, take him out of the equation. But like the last few managers, Hudson and Morrison, they got the history of the club and things like that. They've some of the staff is already there. They probably knew from their playing days, I'd imagine, even if from a backroom staff, behind the scenes sort of thing. This guy's coming in now, potentially coming in now, and he's not got no direct link to Cardiff at all, apart from a couple of games against them. I don't know, mate. I'm clutching at straws. I just think that I don't know, mate. It looks like it's going one way at the moment. Let's be realistic. How can we attract players when
We've got no money, mate.
So,
we've got no money. So how are we going to sign? We can only sign people on a free transfer. So like, all right, say we bring in, who did I see who was a free transfer we could bring in? Connor Wickham. Now, Connor Wickham in his day when he was younger was a very, very talented striker. But I don't know whether he's going to keep Cardiff City up from relegation and score the goals needed in 2023. And he's been playing, very sort of lower league football for the last year or so. It's embarrassing, mate. And like Reece makes a good point there. He said, if you notice, all these managers who've been sacked, they never say a word about the football club after they've been sacked. However, all the former players are able to come out and reveal all about how the club was run. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that when these managers go, they have a payoff and they sign a big fat NDA. So they can't talk about the football club because if you think how the general consensus within the fan base at the moment is that they want a change, they want the board out, they've all had, everyone's had enough of it and all the rest of it. So what that means is, if say Steve Morrison had come out and said, "Oh, I got sacked for this," and then he badmouths the club and blah blah blah, that's the final nail in the coffin in terms of the fan going from a bit of going from discontent within the fan base to full-blown protests, which is starting to you're seeing these sort of placards and signs starting to turn up now. But if Morrison or Hudson or or anyone, Warnock, McCarthy, if they come out and lift the lid on the board and sort of slag them off or whatever, that's going to be the final nail. So of course they've got them signed, sealed, and delivered. And look, it's unfortunate, mate. Jordan Hugel signed on a free for Rotherham. Cody Drymer's going on loan to Luton. I like Cody Drymer, but I'm pretty sure, and maybe someone can correct me, I'm sure, I don't know if it's still the case, but up until like a couple of weeks ago, we were only able to sign free transfers as part of the transfer embargo. We weren't able to bring any loans in or pay any fees. But
I think that's changed. I think we can get loans.
So, but then if you're Cody,
I could be wrong, mate.
Why would you want to come to Cardiff, mate? At the end of the day, Luton are battling for the playoffs. They play good football. It's a lovely little ground, old school ground. or do you want to come and fight for relegation in a fan base, like in front of a crowd that's already turned against the board and is so kind of, if things don't pick up, it's going to be quite a toxic atmosphere for the rest of the season. So, of course, players aren't stupid, mate. They know when, they understand like when the shit's going to hit the fan. And I think with Cardiff, the shit is going to hit the fan sooner than later. So it's going to be difficult to get people in. Now, maybe this Lamucci will be able to work some magic. Who knows? But until there's things put in place above the manager and the coaching staff, where there's football people there, nothing will change. It'll just be rinse and repeat. And Sol Bamba will be manager of Cardiff City. If he's his assistant, Sol Bamba will be Cardiff City manager before the end of next season. Simple as that. So that's depressing. That's
that's
nice.
fucking way for me to shoot myself. So let's move on.
Nice, miserable fucking start to the show. So, did you watch the United Arsenal game on the weekend?
Not all of it, mate, but I seen the back end of it. Especially the winner from Nkadier, mate. Ooh.
So, what do you make of Arsenal's general performance? And do you think have they got enough about them to win the league?
Ooh. I think they. Oh, I'd love it if they did it. I sound like Kevin Keegan. Oh, I'd love it if they beat them. I'd love it. No. I still think they are a couple of signs away from cementing it. That's a great win over United over the weekend. That's an amazing win, especially the form United have been on. But I don't see City dropping many points between now and the end of the season, and Arsenal probably have got a couple of losses in them.
So you say that, mate, but Arsenal have only lost one all season.
Yeah,
and I think
we all probably sat here. How many ever years ago it was when with granted it's not on the same scale with Leicester City. We're all waiting for the wheels to fall off with Leicester, wasn't we? And other teams kept dropping points around them. But I know it's not the same scale. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I'd love it if they do carry on. It'd be fantastic. But I would hold my breath. That's what I'm getting at.
So the one thing I noticed from the United game earlier in the season compared to this one, so I thought Arsenal were excellent. But one thing I think they've got now, which they hadn't had previously, and I think Arteta deserves a lot of credit for it, is they've got a bit of resolve and a bit of fucking grit in there, whereby, so the basic equivalent of their grit in previous seasons was Granit Xhaka, who was basically one tackle or one little incident away from a red card.
He's a psychopath.
Yeah, mate, he loses it very easy. Whereas they brought in Partey, I think makes a massive difference. Odegaard's excellent, and I think they've got a good mix. But also in the game at the start of the season, they showed glimpses of that resolve, but United hit them on the break and took their chances, and they didn't crumble. Like Arsenal didn't crumble, but United are very good at, when they get ahead by a goal or two, at controlling the game. I mean, you look at the game last night with Forest. As soon as they were 2 ahead, it was like Forest were just playing. It was like United were playing a training game. So, I just think I look at Man City. Man City just look like they're struggling to find consistency. And every time you think, like Saturday now, they've won and Haaland scored a hat-trick, but they'll go and drop points on the weekend or the next time they play in the league. And it's just, they can't seem to find the same consistency. And I think part of that is because they are still getting used to playing with an out number 9. And I saw, who was it? Who was talking? I can't remember. I was listening to someone on the radio this week saying they were arguing, has Haaland made Man City a better team? And like, you're not talking about his goals. Obviously, that's sensational. But if you look at Man City last year and you look at
They're on
Man
a lot
City
less
this
points.
year, are they
Yeah.
better than they were last year? And I think you could argue there's an argument to be made that they're not better. So
Yeah.
but look, I think they'll find a way. But like you saw when they played United, like Haaland barely touched the ball because he wants it in behind, he wants it crosses in the box, he wants it in behind the defenders and the rest of it. But they play through and in front of they break teams down, don't they? And they catch them on the press and stuff. And it'll take a bit of time, and maybe that's why they're struggling with the consistency. But they've got enough quality that they could go and win all their games from now to the end of the season. But then, like when you look at the table and you look at the form that teams are in, they've got to play each other is the one thing. So I think if Arsenal don't lose that game, I think they'll probably win the league. However, if you look at that table, who else is going to beat Arsenal? Well, the way Arsenal are playing, the consistency, the grit, but also the quality. Like, who else is going to beat them? Liverpool, God knows what's going on with them. Chelsea are just buying everybody, so that's going to take a bit of time to sort of settle in. I think Newcastle might have a say in like where the title race goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're still, I think, a work in progress. I think it's fair to say. And then obviously, like, I think I think the top 4 in terms of the Premier League will probably be as it is now. I think it's what it is: Arsenal, City, Newcastle, United, and I think they've been the 4 best teams in the league. And you look at them, I think they'll be the 4 at the end of the year, barring any sort of mishaps. Like Newcastle's an interesting one because they haven't spent big like you thought they were going to, but they've still already. Yeah, but they're already in the top 4 playing good stuff in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. So it's like, when do they pull you're almost waiting for them to pull a trigger in a transfer market. But also, on the other side of that, I think I said to Rhodri a couple of weeks ago, like, for instance, if they lose the second leg next week to Southampton and they don't get to the final, I think Eddie Howe's under pressure then. Because that was it. If he wins a trophy, he can sort of, he can say, right, give me some money and we'll buy, we'll take it on to the next level. But if he doesn't get the trophy or he doesn't get to the final, is top 4 enough for them to not go and, because they got so much money, they can go and approach any manager in the world. It's difficult, mate. Like, but then if you said sorry, mate, if you said to the Newcastle fans at the start of the year, you can have top 4 at the end of the year without spending 200 million, they would have snapped your hands off it, because that's a good basis to build, because you can offer Champions League football next year, which means players will come without having to give them excessive money and the rest of it. So it's interesting, mate. But where do you see Newcastle? Like, what's the success for them?
I think, to touch on your point, mate, about pulling the trigger, I think if Newcastle do get, which they, like you said, they do deserve to get top 4, which if they do get top 4, I think that's when we'll see the trigger getting pulled from the transfers, because that'll have a massive impact on financial fair play with the revenue coming in from the Champions League and things like that. They haven't got to be so careful, I suppose you can call it, with the transfers and the wages and things like that, because of the guaranteed income from the revenue from playing Champions League football. So it could be very dangerous for our teams if Newcastle get that top 4, because I think I definitely think they'll pull a trigger there, mate. At the moment they can't really. Not at the moment, but like previous window, they couldn't really offer players that much, could they? Apart from obviously financial gain, but offering them Champions League football with financial gain. Jesus Christ, God help.
Yeah. Well, mate, I think the summer transfer window is going to be
To be
absolutely
fucking bonkers, mate.
wild, mate, because Chelsea are trying to sign everyone. Arsenal seem to now finally have a bit of money to spend after moving to the new stadium. Like, it seems to be coming together. United are going to have new owners by the end of the season. So they're going
Liverpool
to
got to be rebuilding.
well, Liverpool have got to, because they're going to fall behind otherwise.
Yeah.
So they can't afford to not, because they've got such an old, particularly in midfield, they've got such an aging squad that
Yeah.
they need to redo it. Tottenham, I think, will sell Harry Kane in the summer. He's only got a year left. They've got to sell him to finance, their Conte's project. So there's so much going. Newcastle got a bottomless pit of money, so you could end up with because if United say finish third, fourth, Ten Hag and they win a trophy, say they win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup or something, that's a success for Ten Hag. So the new owner is going to be like, wow, look what he's done with not much. Let's give him fucking 150 million or whatever, or Mbappe or whatever, and so they're going to be looking to really go from top 4 contenders to title contenders. Newcastle are going to have that money, where they're going to have Champions League and they're going to have money to spend. Man City got money to spend. So you could just have all these clubs competing for the best players.
It could
but
be a
all
naughty little season next year.
It's mental, mate. It's really, it's quite exciting in one way, but especially because it looks like Harry Kane's going to be available, and it looks like Mbappe is going to leave Paris. So straight away, you've got what some people would argue, the 2 best centre forwards in the world available. Well, straight away, United need a centre forward. Newcastle have got the money to spend. I'm sure Chelsea will try and sign them just because they're players.
Well, allegedly, Mbappe would only go to Liverpool.
Yeah, but see, I was reading that the other day. So, but then I saw another thing from about a year ago. Well, actually, it was about 6 months ago, where he said he'd love to play for United and Ten Hag. And I saw another thing where he said he'd love to play for Pep. So it's like, he's going to go where he wants to
He's
go.
a little whore then.
And at the end of the day, mate, right, say he goes somewhere in the summer, if Liverpool finish 6th, he's going to go and not play Champions League football?
Yeah.
No, is he? So
he'll come around and say, I've always loved Newcastle. Aaron Shearer is my idol growing up.
Yeah, it's the same as they all do, isn't it? But I do find it's really interesting because you've got these. What I like about what Ten Hag has done, and Eddie Howe actually as well, is they haven't just come in and spent 100 million and bought all these new players. They've signed a couple of players, but they've made the players they've got better. Luke Shaw was good anyway, but now he just looks fucking unbelievable. Whether he plays a centre back or left back, you've got Wan-Bissaka looks like what everyone thought he was going to be when he first went to United, because his defensively is excellent. He's the best tackler in Europe, I think. In terms of just a one-on-one, did you see the tackle he done on Wilfred Zaha?
Yeah.
Zaha's through on goal. He's 5 yards ahead of him. And by the way, Zaha is not slow. And he just not only gets back up with him, he slides and hooks his leg around him in the penalty area and wins the ball. No other defender is capable of that, in my opinion. But Fred looks like he can play all of a sudden. Rashford is on this ridiculous run of whatever it is, 11 in 10 or something, 10 goals in a row or whatever it is. So and the same with Eddie Howe, he's got Callum Wilson scoring goals.
Joe Linton, mate.
Joe Linton, and what's
he's
the
just
one?
A born again.
In Marianne or something in Newcastle. Yeah, he just looks he looked like a fucking donkey, mate, before Eddie Howe. And now he looks like a world beater. That's what top coaches should do.
Yeah.
And this is why my argument has always been for Jose Mourinho. You can't argue with his record, but if you bring Jose Mourinho in as your manager, you got to give him 200-300 million over a couple of seasons. Let him buy whoever he wants. He'll build a team, he'll win trophies, and then he'll blow up and he'll go. And that's why he was never a good fit for Tottenham, because Tottenham were never going to give him. They were never going to let him sign the players he wanted and whatnot. And like even United, they did it for 2 seasons. He finished second, and that's when they should have then given him, the big bucks to
They
push
should have
on.
pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and they didn't. They shit out, and then it goes wrong, doesn't it? It's like you gotta. I think, yeah, it's all right signing players, but top coaches will make the players they've got better. Eddie Howe has really, really impressed me, mate, and that's what like Graham Potter now at Chelsea, mate. He's got to do the same. Like he's got all these players, they're signing all these players. I'm not sure how much say he has in it in terms of. Does he want all these players, or are they being given to him? I wouldn't know, but what I can say is Graham Potter's got to show that he's a good coach now, and he's got to use these players, and he's got to build that Chelsea team. That Chelsea squad's unbelievable, and they are massively underachieving. They are playing absolute terrible stuff, and they look awful. They look like a team of individuals, but on paper they've got an incredible squad. So I'll be interested to see how Potter does. And like I've been saying to Rhodri the last couple of weeks, I think that Chelsea was the wrong club for Graham Potter. Not that Graham Potter was the wrong man for Chelsea. I think that Chelsea were the wrong club for him. But he's got to show now that he can get all those individuals and turn them into a team.
Do you think he'd be still manager of Chelsea this time next year?
Probably not.
He won't be, really.
I don't think that the biggest names, all these big names he's signing, particularly like some of the young, like they're like young, but they're already proven. And I just think they won't have the respect for him that like a Tuchel would have got, or a like Klopp or whatever. They won't respect him in the same way, unfortunately, because I think he could do a good job, but the way Chelsea have behaved in the transfer market is nuts, Smith. It's nuts. So I don't know. Is the answer, because I really don't know if he's wants those players or if they're being bought for him and then said, right, there you go.
Yeah.
Do you know what was mad, mate? Do you see so Tottenham signed Danjama from Villarreal, I think it was, and he had photos taken at Everton and everything, like his signing photos with the shirt and that, and then he changed his mind and went to Spurs because he says, or supposedly the reason is because Frank Lampard got sacked, and the only reason he wanted to go there was because of Frank Lampard. But to me, I just think he's realised like how toxic it is at Everton at the moment, and he's thought, you know what, Spurs want me. At least I can go there and it's a bit more chilled, because it's mental, mate. I saw loads of mine. I got a few mates who are Newcastle fans, and they do not want Anthony Gordon from Everton.
Yeah, it's a great segue there, mate. I was going to ask you about that one. Go on, carry on.
Professional. Well, Anthony Gordon hasn't turned up to training for Everton for 2 days. And look, by the way, mate, 3 is it? I got to say, by the way,
today, 3.
I don't blame him on one hand, because what's happened to him by his own fans has been disgraceful. Like, he's a homegrown player, having his car surrounded by masked and hooded blokes and kids and whatever, and like you don't know what they're going to do, you don't know how far they're going to take it and the rest of it. He's only a kid. Like, it's got to be very, very intimidating. And then when you think, oh, if my own fans are doing that, and I'm a homegrown player and they're turning against me, it is what it is. I heard that he did an interview, I think it was last year, it might be the start of this season, where he was asked by the club channel or whoever was interviewing him, like, who's the best at who's the best finisher in the team? And he went, me. Who's the fastest in the team? And he went, me. And they asked him all these different things about the squad, and his answer to everything was me. And apparently that upset a few people. So, he's
I don't know.
He's confident in his own ability, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't discourage that at all, mate.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you don't turn up to training for 3 days, do you know what that does, mate? Is that puts teams off, because whether it's Newcastle or Tottenham or whoever's looking at him, they're looking at that and they're thinking, well, do you know what? Well, if he's not happy with something, is he going to just be a headache?
Yeah.
And the answer would probably be, yeah, you will. Look, once a player goes down that route, you can understand why football clubs then don't want to touch him. And you could certainly understand why the fans, like if you look for Newcastle, for instance, tremendous. They got this wicked team spirit at the moment. They're on this amazing run, having this amazing season. Do you want to bring in a youngster from Everton who hasn't been pulling up trees this season for 40 million, a lot of money, who could potentially cause a problem within that squad if he's got a bad attitude?
Yeah. Your money could be spent better elsewhere, couldn't it? I think. There was, I read a few things about it today. Christ, when Rooney broke on the scene, and granted, he was a dime a dozen. He never skipped training. I'm not a big Wayne Rooney fan, by the way. But he never skipped training or anything like that.
Well, even when he fell out with United, mate. And when he fell out with United and he fell out with Fergie and he put in a transfer request.
True.
They put in a transfer request because they wouldn't spend money, but he never didn't do his job. He played every week whilst being booed, scored goals, turned up for training, did his job. But off the field, he told
my point was the Everton part. But yeah, you're absolutely right there, mate. I completely forgot about that. So yeah, that's a good shout.
In my opinion, look, Gordon has got to understand there's two sides to it. One side, of course, we understand him not wanting or making a point about training or trying to force a move because of whatever. Maybe he's not going to, we don't know. Maybe he's not going to train in because he's not happy with Everton's security. No one knows. And if that would say he comes out tomorrow, right? He does an interview with Sky Sports News and he says, the reason I haven't gone to training this week is because I asked the football club for extra security when I'm entering the ground because my car's been surrounded several times. And the club said no. Is that better than him trying to force a move? Is that forgivable then? I don't know, mate.
I think I just caught sight of the chat and Reese brings up a fantastic point. If you can bring that up. About player power.
Yeah. Well, you say that. I'll fight back a little bit against that.
Oh, here he goes.
Look at Ten Hag this year, mate. Look how he dealt with player power. Ronaldo, bad attitude, dropped. No, missed pre-season, so didn't play. Bad attitude, dropped when he refused to come on. Then he knew that he'd recorded an interview with Piers Morgan, but it hadn't come out yet. So he made him captain, played. So the interview comes out and he says, Ten Hag doesn't respect me, blah, blah, blah. Well, he just gave you the captaincy, so you look like a tit. As soon as that interview was in the car, he was out of that football club in days. In days, mate. Marcus Rashford on the scoring run of a lifetime. Turned up 15 minutes late for a meeting on the day of a game, dropped. Comes on, scores a goal to win the game. Player power is only what football clubs and managers allow it to be. Paul Pogba got away with murder at United under Solskjaer because Solskjaer was too soft on him. Paul Pogba fell out with Jose Mourinho because instead of doing what Ten Hag has done this year with the players, and he's made it clear everyone gets treated the same. Everyone's got to follow these rules to take the club forward and the team forward. poor Mourinho tried to do it with like slide digs in the media, like he did the same to Luke Shaw and Pogba, and that just creates it doesn't create the reaction that he wants it to with modern players. Whereas I think modern players, I think if everybody's treated the same,
10, 15 years ago, it works.
yeah, yes, it does, and that's why Wayne Mourinho, when he was at Chelsea, they did work having those little digs. It motivated players like Frank Lampard and Drogba and Makelele and that. They took it personally, and then the next game they would run through a brick wall to prove him wrong. Whereas now, I think attitudes have changed. People are encouraged more to like to talk about how they're feeling and the rest of it. So it's just different. Whereas, like, no one knows at the moment why Anthony Gordon hasn't gone to training. So my only kind of with the reason I'm not criticizing him fully, I guess, is because if it came out and said that he's asked for extra security and the club haven't given it to him, or he's struggling with the mental side of it because he's been harassed, I think that the football club has a duty to do more to help him out. If he's just trying to force a move, then he deserves all the abuse he's getting. Do you see what I mean?
What do you actually think it is, mate? Surely, as a big club like that, as much as I can't stand everything, the stuff I've seen over the last few months, few years, the fans have been doing, surely as a club they have a duty of care to protect players.
Of course they do. They should do. And it's where the first time his car got surrounded, they should have made sure that he had extra security whenever he was, going about club business and doing stuff. However, he has also got to understand that he's from a working class city. He hasn't been performing on the pitch. His attitude has been questionable. He gets paid thousands of pounds a week. And if you're a football fan who's struggling to pay your electric bill because the cost of living crisis, and you see a footballer who's getting paid at the very least, and I mean at the bare minimum, he is getting 25 grand a week. With sponsors and the rest of it, he's probably getting closer to 50. And you see him refusing to go to work when you're getting up for 6 o'clock in the morning to go out in the cold and do your labouring job or your whatever job. Like, of course, football fans are pissed off. So if that's not if the reason is not that he's trying to force a move, then either he should make a statement and explain it, or the club should, because they have a duty of care to him. If he's not trying to force a move and it's to do with something else, then deal with it. Look at the way. Sorry to use United as an example again, but look at the way that they've dealt with Jadon Sancho. He had a friend of his who killed himself. He was struggling. It started to affect his form on the pitch. So in the World Cup break, instead of just putting him through the paces and just working him like a dog to get him back to it, they said, no, go to Holland. Here's a personal plan. Work with these people who also include like mental health people. But you're still doing a personalised football training. And he's now back training with the first team. And by all accounts I've heard, he's doing very, very well. He's probably not fit. But like, that's how you look after a player, isn't it?
That's just perfect.
I question how. There's two sides to it, right? If he's trying to force a move, then he's been a bit of a twat. But I think you've got to understand, if as a homegrown player from Everton who's come through the academy, he's from the area, blah blah blah. Like, if he wants to leave, there's a reason. Because when your homegrown players want to leave, there's an issue. Because normally they're the ones who get forced to be sold for the betterment of the club, like a Rooney, like a Joe Ledley, and Aaron Ramsey, whoever. Like, they get sold, but they stay as long as they can because it's their club. Now, if he's trying to force a move, there's a reason, and I would like to know what that reason is, to be honest, before I completely slam him.
Sorry to poo-poo on you again.
Yeah.
But another player power one, going back against what I was saying, but another great point where Reece put out was about Aubameyang.
Well, yeah, look at Arteta.
Fucking brilliant.
Got to get rid of anything which is a bad apple.
And he's come back to Chelsea. He's done the same.
Yeah. Well, I said when they signed for Chelsea, how can they justify bringing him in when the team down the road, 5 minutes down the road, have got rid of him because he was causing a problem within the
He was a
squad?
knobhead. But
remarkable, mate.
Was he forgive me, but was he a free for Chelsea as well, or did they actually pay for him?
No, I'm not sure. They might have paid for him actually, because I believe he's not long signed for Barcelona.
He went to Barca for free, didn't he?
Yeah.
But then, I think Chelsea paid like 20 million, maybe. Is it? I don't know. Someone will correct me, I'm sure, but I can't remember what happened.
Yeah. Oh, spot on again. Reece says, like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I mean, for all his faults, he dealt with Jesse Lingard incredibly well. Jesse Lingard had a hard time personally with him. His mother's mental health was bad. He raised his brother and sister, and the media were going after him constantly, social media as well. But I would question it, like, Solskjaer did a lot to help him, but like, I would argue that Man United as a football club didn't help him by not giving him certain advice and not helping him publicly. I mean, by, like, if you tell the fans, like, I know they did tell towards the end of his United career, they did sort of say what was going on. But if fans had known like a year earlier, I believe that buys him a bit of like goodwill, or a bit of like.
With what, Jesse?
Yeah. And look, I get it. Like, some people, maybe they don't want their personal life like plastered all over the place. But you can say, like, listen, so-and-so is going through something. It's away from football. It's a very, very difficult, delicate situation. He'd appreciate privacy and a bit of whatever. Like, there's ways to do it without telling the whole story. Now, I'm not saying, look, none of this could apply to Anthony Gordon. None of it could. But if you look at his situation and what we do know, his car being surrounded multiple times, the abuse he's getting on social media, his form on the pitch compared to last year, it wouldn't be a surprise if someone told you that he's got some stuff going on or whatever it may be. So, look, it's a difficult one, but I just thought it was funny that, like, some people, Newcastle fans, Tottenham fans, were like, no, we don't want him. So I'd be interesting to see if he goes. So as we look to wrap up on that, I wanted to sort of look to the FA Cup on the weekend. Some good games in the FA Cup.
Good game.
Come on now. If anyone's got any questions, get them in as quick as you can. Just before we do talk about the FA Cup and do our predictions for the weekend, I would like to say thanks to Four Sigmatic Coffee for sponsoring the show. Four Sigmatic is basically a sciencey way of saying really good for you. They turned the planet's most astounding nutrient-dense ingredients into things you will love having every day. The purpose of Four Sigmatic is to help people achieve elevated wellness with the world's most nutrient-dense ingredients. They started back in the happiest country in the world, Finland. Their founders, Finnish grandparents, brewed mushrooms when they couldn't get coffee during World War II due to the shortages. Turns out the organic coffee plus functional mushrooms like chaga is delicious and kicks off the day every day to make it a good day. Ever since we've searched for the most enthusiastically studied best of the best Four Sigmatic ingredients to add to the daily go-tos for focus, clarity, energy, and balance to de-stress. And what I can tell you as a personal thing, I'm very skeptical as a human being generally, and what I discovered is I read it and I was like, mushroom coffee, like, oh, that sounds a bit. All right, I'll give it a try. And I have 1 cup a day. So I don't have it when I first get up. I give it a couple of hours, and then when I start to flag, I have one cup about sort of 10, half 10, and been up about 5 hours at that point. So I'm like starting to feel a bit tired, and it just gives me a lift. And for a good couple of hours, I feel like I've got like just a clear head, and I feel get really big lift, like, and it tastes amazing, mate. I gotta say, and you can use the code Ace Nation, get yourself a nice little discount. They do subscriptions where they'll send you your product every month, just rotating thing. But they also do one-off ones. They do instant coffee. They also do like what I've got. So the brand they sent me is the Think brand, which is the mushroom one with lion's mane extract. Use the code Ace Nation, get yourself a discount, give it a try. It is superb. And of course, we thank Four Sigmatic for sponsoring the show. But
Thank you, Bad.
what was you going to ask me, mate?
I don't know. What was I going to ask you?
Don't know, something about a coffee.
Oh, what's the best coffee to get? No.
Think.
What I was going to say was, sorry to jump back the comments again, but Reese says, did either of you see that Prime show about Arsenal Arteta saying that's why I kept all the dates in case the date comes when we know them? What do you mean? What about Orba? Is he on about Aubameyang?
I don't know, mate. Don't know what he's on about. He's in a world of his own. He's in a world of his own.
Oh, I know that.
I'm sure he'll tell us. So yeah, FA Cup, mate, is coming on the weekend. So Friday, you got Man City, Arsenal, big game in the FA Cup. Got any giant killers in there? Let's have a look. United are playing Preston, Fulham, Sunderland. Some good games, mate. Who do you fancy for the FA Cup this year?
United.
Yeah, I think they're going to win both the
I think United are going to win it.
Do you think they'll win the Carabao Cup as well?
No, I think Newcastle win it.
So I'll tell you where I think United will beat Newcastle. I think when you look at the team, the players they've got a lot of players who've played a lot of cup finals, and the way that United play football under Ten Hag, I think is perfectly set up to play against Newcastle in a one-off game where you press and you hit them on a break and you either win the ball high up and hit them when they're out of position, or they'll hit them on the break. And I just think when you look at they got Martinez just won the World Cup, Rafa Varane's won the World Cup, De Gea's played in loads of finals, Shaw's played in loads of finals. I just think there's so much quality players. Casemiro is like a serial winner. I just think they'll have too much experience and quality for Newcastle, assuming Newcastle get past Southampton. But I think it'll be a good game. But I got a feeling United might win both the domestic cups, I think. Wrexham play Sheffield United on Sunday. Looking forward to that. Leslie, you missed the Middlesbrough talk. We started off the show praising Michael Carrick and talking Middlesbrough.
So they get relegated. Tell me they get relegated.
Yeah, absolute dog shit. No, you have to go back and watch the start. Wrexham, Sheffield United, mate. Fancy Wrexham to get an upset there? Is that Wrexham?
Oh, what a game.
It'll be about 7-5 to whoever wins.
What a game. What time's that on Sunday?
4:30 Sunday at Wrexham as well. I got a feeling, mate. I fancy Wrexham, mate. I really do.
I actually do as well. I think 3-1 Wrexham.
Yeah, I think so as well, mate. So we're going to do our predictions now to finish off for the Super Six. Let me just bring them up, mate. If anyone's got any questions, we'll answer them as well. But I need to be quick. Places to be, people to see, all the rest of it. So yeah, Rodders was unfortunately had a last-minute thing come up, which he couldn't do anything about, which is unfortunate because he was ill last week. But he will be back next week. Shout out to Rob for jumping in very last minute. I appreciate that, mate, as always.
Always a pleasure, bud.
And obviously we had Evan on last week, which was a nice change as well, like getting a few little different faces on the channel. Say hello. Got to get all these people. And if you didn't watch, so if you were a patron, you will have already seen it. But if you're not a patron and you didn't watch the second episode of the big debate, which we dropped on YouTube yesterday, you are missing out. So last night I dropped the episode where we talked about gender, and oh boy, what a conversation that was! Really, really interesting. It was very, what's the word? Some will say controversial, I guess. But we were very we tried to look at it from all different angles. But like as you know, Rob, we've talked about all different subjects with that. Like we've talked about euthanasia, we've talked about crime and punishment, we've talked about what else have we done? Cyclists, like all sorts of stuff. It's been it's a good series. That's going to be coming out every Tuesday. The new episode will be free for people to watch and have a look. But predictions for the Super Six this weekend, my friend. Let's get it done, as it were. First game is Fulham versus Sunderland. I've gone 2-1 to Sunderland.
2-1 Fulham.
Southampton versus Blackpool.
2-0 Southampton.
Yeah, I've gone 2-0 Southampton. Bristol City versus West Brom. I have gone 2-3 to West Brom.
Yeah, I go 2-1 Baggies.
Ipswich versus Burnley.
1-0 Ipswich.
3-1 Burnley for me.
Ooh.
Preston versus Spurs. I've gone 4-1 to Spurs.
Yeah, you can't see anything but Spurs win there, can you, mate?
No. But Preston are in all right form. They've won 3 of the last 5.
Nah, I go 2-0 Spurs.
You'd expect Spurs to play quite a strong team.
Yeah, I think they will, but they won't take it lightly.
And then finally, Saturday night, 8 p.m, live on TV, United versus Reading at United. Ten Hag plays very strong teams in all these games. I think generally because he hasn't got that big a squad. But I've gone 4-1 United. I think they'll give Reading a bit of a shoe-in, I've got to be honest.
2-0 United.
Reading have not in the best of form. United are obviously on fire at the moment. So, yeah. So Leslie says, there you go. Right, girls and boys, as always, it's a pleasure. Please do, as always, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really helps us out. We're back. Leslie, we're back 8 o'clock every Thursday, mate. So get involved. And don't forget to check out the big debate every Wednesday, 9 p.m. On the YouTube channel. Last night was gender. Next week, maybe we'll drop. What should we drop next week, Robert? I decided I'm going to do them out of order, you see. So, got Heaven and Hell, got Life After Death, Sex Education. What else? Capital Punishment. Yeah, there's all sorts.
Tomato sauce or brown sauce.
Yeah, there was in there, wasn't there? All sorts of cyclists. There's all sorts of stuff. So make sure you check that out. Rhodri will be back next Thursday. And
sorry to disappoint you all. Rhodri's back next week. I do apologise. Rob
is the super sub. But Rhodri,
I love you more, Reese.
And yeah, check it out. If you want extra content as well, we do shows on Monday with Reese. And we've hopefully got a Cardiff City show coming, or a championship show coming soon as well. Just trying to work out the best way to take that. Also, I have a new channel coming with one of the patrons soon. So keep a lookout for more information on that. But until then, we bid you farewell. Good tag.